So, good morning, everyone. So, as I said yesterday, what this week, what is the journey that we're going to take us? It is more of the inner quest, it's kind of a self inquiry. Because most often, we can reach a place of stillness by some practices. For an example, when you're doing a meditation or while we have done some kind of the visualization exercises, we can reach the point where we feel the stillness for a very brief time, though it can be few seconds maybe, but we can access it at that moment. However, the real challenge comes in is it's not by practicing something for extended period of time, but however, being there with that place as a being, when I say as a being, continue there and be there for the whole time, whatever the outside situation may be, how can we carry the inner stillness, and from there we act. And that is something is what we are going to explore. And for that, what we need is, it's kind of going deeper to understanding of what are the identities, belief, and the values, ideas that we accumulate ourselves with, and what is kind of attachments or expectation that we're built on. So that way, we will be completely be aware. So the idea of today's discussion will be about one single topic is awareness. I'm sure most of you know what is awareness is, as well as how to practice awareness. We will take a baby step and start from here as what is awareness is in the first place. And I just like to start with a quote and a story. The quote goes like this. Sometime back, I was just thinking about it and then I was writing is, instead of seeing God as a being, what if we see God as a state to be in? I just repeat that again. Instead of seeing God as a being, as a somebody who's external being, what if we see God as a state or inner state to be in, right? So this quote is something so we always look for, when we're talking about a religion aspect or anything, so we look the God as a someone who's external, we should follow and be there. But there is also, most of the religion also say that, there is a God within us, the one all seeing person who is always there. He's also inside us, or he or she, the form of the God. So what if that is an inner state? So just contemplate that thought, and that you may get some idea of what is to be like a God within and us, to be the state within us. And I connect that state as awareness, a pure awareness of what is happening to our inside and outside. And from that place, we can act gracefully to any situation that may come in our life. And to illustrate the point of the awareness and identifications that we build on, the identifications are like day before yesterday, we discussed more on identifications, thoughts, beliefs, and etc. So when the moment we attaching to it, that comes to a one quick story. The story goes like this. Once Buddha was in a small village. He was sitting under a tree and then meditating as usual. And there was this astrologer, very expert astrologer, who crosses that village. And at one part of the village, he saw a footprint, the Buddha's footprint on a wet sand. And by seeing the footprint, this man, this astrologer got kind of a awestruck. He was surprised, because that, according to him, whatever the knowledge that he acquired by studying all the scriptures and everything, and he's an expert astrologer in the whole country, then he thinks that this footstep is belong to a king. He's a ruler, the world ruler. His footstep is here. And how can a ruler can come to some small village without any announcement or something? So he got curious and then he follows the footstep. And the footstep eventually will lead to Buddha. And the Buddha will be sitting under the tree and then he'll be meditating. And this astrologer, he gets puzzled, by seeing Buddha. First, he looks at his face and then he says, wow, this person, the one who is there under the tree, he is glowing, he is got all the traits of uh, the ruler. However, he is also in a very poor man's clothes and he is having a begging plate and etc. So what is wrong? I don't understand this. Then he just goes to Buddha and then falls on his feet and then just understand, want to check with him. See, I'm so confused. And according to my knowledge, like, all the scripture, the footprints should be belong to a person who is a ruler of the world, right? The one who's ruling. However, here I see you. Either my scriptures are bad, whatever the knowledge that I acquired is bad or not right, or am I hallucinating, or am I seeing someone who's not present at all? For that, Buddha responds saying that all your scriptures are right. Whatever you learned is right. Then he says, oh, if that is right, then who are you? Like, so he's not still getting who the other person is, like, who's Buddha is. Then he says that, what do you say? If that is right, like all my scriptures, I don't understand who you are. Then for that, Buddha says, I'm just a being. Then he says, no, no, no. Then are you a god? Like, you are a god. And here he says, no, I'm not a god. Then he says, are you yeah, the ruler, but who is like, hiding in a different clothes and other things? He says, no. And finally, he says that, are you some kind of an angel or a Gandharva, like, who visited us or visiting us? He says, no. And finally, Buddha says that, I'm just a pure awareness. I don't have any identity, thus I am just Buddha. And he says that any kind of a categorization or anything that forms an identity within me, and then I'm beyond the identities. So that way, I don't hold on to any of the things that you said, and I'm a pure awareness. So that's how the story ends. Like how an astrologer follows the footstep and then finds him, and then he sees Buddha as a pure awareness who's not attached to any identities. So all what we are trying to do today is to try to be in the place of full awareness, a complete awareness of what is going on within us. So that being said, let's move on to the realm of suffering. Like the Buddha's biggest teaching is how to get out of suffering, right? So though I wanted to ask you a question is, what causes suffering? Like if any one of you wanted to share, you can share, or we can continue that as well. So what causes suffering? Is it a thoughts causes suffering to us?
I think our expectations.
Expectations, right?
Hmm, if the expectations are not fulfilled, then we get suffering.
Yes,
Expectations includes in ourselves or others,
yes. So it can be expectation of ourselves or from the other.
or about our others.
Yes. So that brings us, like, to a very niche point is thoughts. Like, the primary construct of the mind itself is nothing but thoughts, right? At any given point in time, if there is no pain, something is inflicted, like, physically to us, the rest that is left with us is only us, like, our mind and our being, right? So what happens there is the thought itself doesn't cause any kind of a pain. The thought comes, thought goes. It is a very natural process of like how the ripples comes in and the ripple settles down. But then the attachment to the thoughts, when I say attachment, when we take those thoughts seriously, right? When I say seriously, like we give more importance when we have our own identities, when it comes to our beliefs, ideas, identities, values, and expectation, attachments, ego, and all these things, when we construct to that specific thought, that gives a power to the thought. A thought itself doesn't have a power, it just comes and goes. However, when we give all these powers, like, when you're talking about all these identities, it becomes strong and that causes the pain, right? So that is where sometimes we become a prisoners of our thoughts. The thought we want to be there, we want to dwell in the inside the thought. It can be a fear, it can be anger, it can be happiness, or it can be any emotion, but then it be go on deeper and be there inside the thoughts. So that's where there is a thing, right? Mindfulness with mindfulness. The mindfulness is obviously being aware and observant of our thought, whereas mindfulness is getting lost in our thought. Like we don't know what is going on within us. And also, there is a thing, right? When we have a mindful attention to our thoughts, the thoughts automatically settles. It takes its time, but it settles automatically. Whereas when we don't give our attention to the thought completely, then it becomes noisy. It creates a lot of sound within us. So, to illustrate that point, we know that a child who we give attention to is always pampered and quiet. The child who doesn't get an attention, it cries more. It cries more and more and more, right? So we need to acknowledge the thoughts. And sometimes we want to run away from the thought. It's like, your baby who's crying for attention, and then we don't want to attend a baby who's crying. So we want to run away. So the more we run away, the baby also starts following us and crying and crying and crying. I mean, like, the baby wants to settle. The baby needs is an attention, right? So likewise, the thought which is not attended, like, what which is not accepted or acknowledged, it is going to cry more. And that way, we need to be completely aware and give an attention to the thought. So that being said, let's quickly move on to the other aspect of it. So I'm sure here, like, you all know about what our identities are, values are, belief systems are, or the ideas and expectations are. And I want to take on one example at least, and want to run through what is that we are trying to talk about when we define something as our identity and how it is breaking down. Either we can go from identity to the level of ideas, or we can scale up and how we build identity from a simple idea. So, though I have created some of the things, and I also be good that if you want to, some of you wanted to share the one idea that you attach to, probably will give some examples from there as well. So, do you want to share any of the idea or identity? Either we can break it down from an identity into a belief, and from the belief we can, from our identity comes to a values, then the beliefs, then we can go to an idea. We can break it down. So that way we will know how we are creating a lot of this identities for our own self, and how we are becoming a prisoners of it. So any one of you wants to share example, or you wanted to explore one part of your identity? No? All right. So in that case, like, let me quickly just, anyone? Not, I don't know. All right. So,
Karthik, could you do that so I could develop a better understanding of what exactly are we doing here?
right. So I'm saying, like, you can give an example of it. So for an example, how do you see yourself? Or you see that, like, this, the identity is, say, I am a good man. I am a family man, right?
Okay.
So I am anything that I'm putting attached to I am. I am smart.
Hmm.
I'm a good looking person. I'm a bad looking person. I am a smart being. I'm a happy person. I'm a
Hmm.
sad person. I'm an
Hmm.
introvert. I'm an extrovert. These are all when it comes with I am, and that becomes an identity, right?
Okay.
Whenever we consciously say anything out with I am this, then that is becoming a part of us. That's becoming a
Hmm.
part of an identity.
Hmm.
Even for that matter, if I say that I am a spiritual person, that is an
Hmm.
identity by itself,
Hmm.
right? So anyone who comes and challenges that, if I'm not a spiritual person or the spirituality is this, then that part of me is going to rebel against that person or whatever I come
Ah,
across,
okay. I get you now. Right.
right? So the whole construct is I am attaching myself to one specific thought or a identity. It can be anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
it can be anything, as I said, like, the physical part. Oh, I am a fat person, or I am a thin person. I'm
Hmm.
thin, I'm fat, or I'm an inward, like, I'm a happy, I'm an
Hmm.
introvert, I'm an extrovert. All these things are forming an identities for ourselves.
Okay.
And is it clear when I'm saying identity?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay. So anything with I am forms an identity. So with identity, for an example, I'm saying I am a family man, right? For an example. So if I say that, then what happens to my value? The value is a family man has to be responsible, right? A man has to be responsible. So that becomes my value. I hold on to that value, right? Then it becomes like my beliefs. My belief is a family man has to be taking care of his family,
Mm-hmm.
right? That becomes my belief. If I don't take care of my family, that means that I'm not a responsible person. If I'm not a responsible person, then I
mm,
am not a family man.
mm,
Like everything is interlinked in a
mm,
big chain of thoughts,
mm,
right? And the final thing is how a belief would have formed. It
mm,
is by some kind of an idea. The idea is probably, uh, say, I must have kind of, in the past, I read a book named The Way of Superior Man, right? The David Dieta. So the Way of Superior Man. Uh, so I read a book, and the name itself says that the way of the superior man. So there is some part of me says, oh yeah, I am a superior man. I have to learn this. So there is a
right.
thing. So in the book, the author's perspective may be completely different, whereas
Mm,
my understanding, I would have taken
mm.
it very differently. And that becomes my own
Ah,
identity or idea, right? So the author
very,
must have said,
yeah.
sorry,
Sorry. Go on. Yeah.
sorry. So in that book, it is a good thing to read a book. Of course, like,
Mm,
we all need to, I mean, like, go from a place of ignorance to light. For that, we need some kind of level of light, like, by reading books and listening to people and everything. We need to get some part of our own understanding of what it is. However, we also sometimes get lost in the trap of forming ideas. So the
mm,
idea is, for an example, in that book, he says that a man should know when to be flexible and when to be like, strict,
Right.
right? The man should know both. So if someone is reading just that without any context, there is a
mm,
lot of
mm.
ways that we misunderstand the whole thing.
Right.
Tanaji, do you want to say?
I
Yeah. Um, my identity with me was I'm a good teacher. I
Mm-hmm.
can teach. I can teach each and every student, even he or she is dull or having less IQ.
Mm-hmm.
But when I uh, taught them and feel that I
Mm-hmm.
can't teach some students
Mm-hmm.
because of some circumstances, and then my beliefs
Mm-hmm.
were pulled down.
Yes. So to go on with this, so see, it is a very complex subject as such. Like, so when you're talking about the quest to understand the identities and ideas, beliefs, thoughts, and definitions, it is going to take a long time. If you are going to do the work to just understand and break ourselves down to each and every single levels of these things, it is going to take a long time, right? It is going to take, I don't know how long, but then like, I know for sure it is takes long time because I was in that path like, for almost 8 years, right?
mm, mm,
Then this is a constant struggle for me. Like I understood that, yes, I understand there is nothing of my identity, values, beliefs, and ideas and definitions and etc. But then if I have to take one thing at a time, so for an example, for my body, so I may not be the person who's like, doing exercises all the day, I mean, all the time. So I may have to change my identity. So I have to work on that. People say, oh, you have to go and work on yourself. You have to form and find out what the true identity is. I understand that. That is important. But at the same time, if I'm going to take one thing and then work on it, each thing is going to take its own time, right? It is not
mm,
comes easy. So likewise, the journey of the quest becomes longer. So the other way I was always curious is if there is like, a scissors and I can cut it all in one go, what that would be, right? So there is an example that comes to my mind is once, I mean, it is a famous saying about Alexander, like, once a king handed over like, the very complex knot in a rope. And then he said, whoever like, unties this knot becomes a winner of something. Whereas like, the Alexander goes and then he doesn't try to like, unknot the whole thing with the efforts and etc. Rather, he takes a sword and then cuts off everything in one single cut. Everything breaks apart, right? So though the idea is to break away from these identities, we can either take a step of going one by one, examining each areas of our life and understand how we attach to those identities and solve it, or to be completely be aware of who we are. And whenever, as and when there is identity or idea and belief, once we understand what they are, then we can be much more be powerful enough to ask and introspect with questions as and when it comes. Instead of just taking it as and when it comes, we question them. So that is another approach I see, because all that matters is our life doesn't go with one area. It can start with, like, it can be our health, it can be relationship, it can be finance, it can be career, it can be personal development, it can be spirituality, it can be anything. The quest is so huge. It is our life we are talking about. So it is not just like, we can just come up with one day and one practice session, we can resolve everything. No, going
So
to take time. So the better way is, in my way, it is allow us and be open enough to examine each and every single thought as it comes, and to the best way to identify whether we have an attachment to those thoughts or not is, whenever we experience any kind of an negative emotion. When I say negative emotion, it can be irritation, it can be discomfort in some form, it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be like, as some kind of like, the ones that we want to show off, like, show out to somebody, like, the negative emotions we feel uncomfortable with.
Mm.
So whenever we feel that uncomfortable state, if we examine our own inner self and just objectively question, where is it coming from? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Right? Pretty much objectively, not just getting attached to those thoughts, ideas, or a belief. But then if something is, say, see, I am upset because this person didn't speak to me in this way, right? Okay, why am I expecting this person to speak to me in this way in the first place? If we question that, automatically, no, because that person is my better half. So for an example, like, she's my uh, wife, and I'm expecting my wife to speak to me in this specific way. So why the wife has to speak to you in this way? You go on and ask that question again. Huh? Yeah, that is what the wife's supposed to do. And for a good relationship, a husband and wife should have a very cordial relationship, and they should talk about all these things. Yes, but who said that? You counter with every single thought with another question, probably you will go deeper and deeper into a different layers of the understanding. So that way we become little more of an aware person. And that being said, the thoughts that I had was, so during the day, like, if you face any kind of a uncomfortable situation or a negative emotion that overall that you feel, that is absolutely the best time to catch yourself with the thought. What is the thought that causing that specific pain to you at that moment? If the thought is causing the pain, introspect objectively, ask the question from where. And we will go a little more deeper in the coming sessions. Today is just an introduction to awareness and all these things. And in fact, like, we can take few more example to understand what are these things in the next few sessions. But for today, like, just be completely aware of what is happening. And to illustrate the point of awareness, so we hear this word awareness a lot of time, right? So the consciousness, awareness, a lot of times. But to give you a perspective of what it is, say the consciousness, the conscious being, it is like a camera. It is like a, say, for an example, it is a CCTV camera, which can take in all the information. But then the camera has to be pointed at the right place, right? So you cannot, like, turn the camera and make it focus on the wall. All you will see is the blank wall. You don't see anything. Whereas if you focus the camera on something, like, for an example, if there is an entrance to the building, you will focus there. You will keep a CCTV camera at the entrance of your house, maybe, because you want to know who is coming in, who is going out of your house, right? So that way, pointing out the camera, that is our consciousness, towards at one specific place is an awareness. So the consciously, the camera we are placing and observe our thoughts becomes our awareness part of it. So the moment we are keeping the tab on what is going and coming, like, inside our mind, we are naturally, we feel much more closely, we'll be watching our thoughts. So that being said, like, watching our thoughts, I'm sure you also know that the power of any kind of the awareness comes from being an observer without any judgment. We just observe our thoughts. That's all. There is no judgment, there is no attachment to that specific thought. So, yes, with that, we come to a conclusion of today. And let's do a quick practice of how to be mindful or how to be aware of our thoughts. Right. So, I'm sure if some of you have practiced meditation, I'm sure you already would have experience of what it is. And today, let's start with a quick meditation, say a couple of minutes, just to be aware of what is going on in our mind. For this, I want you to imagine yourself as in the one who is sitting by on the shore of a riverside and observing the stream of water. Likewise, you will be an observer. You are not the thought. You are just an observer in your mind who is just going to carefully watch what is the thought that crossing the stream of thoughts inside your mind. So you were going to observe. You're going to be an observer of stream of thoughts. And sometimes it's possible that we may lose our composure and we get carried away by the thoughts. To remind us and to anchor to a place of the riverbed, we need something. And the anchor for us is going to be our breath. With inhalation and exhalation, that is going to be our anchoring place. That brings us back to this place and just reminds us to be a vigilant observer of our stream of thoughts. If it's okay, we can start with the practice and then we can conclude for today.
Yep.
Can we start?
Yep.
All right. Sure. So just close your eyes. Sorry, just make yourself comfortable. I'm sorry. Just make yourself comfortable wherever you are. Just sit comfortable. And just start taking in few deep breaths. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Inhale and exhale. Take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale through your mouth. So as you're breathing, just sense the world outside you. Just have a soft glance of what is in front of you. And then take a complete the inward picture of it and then gently close your eyes. As you close your eyes, just scan your body for any kind of a physical discomfort or a tension in your body. Just scan from your head to toe. If you feel any tension, just relax that part of the body. Just relax. And observe any kind of a sensation that you feel in your body. It can be any sensation. Just feel if there is any sensation that you feel. As you sense, you just acknowledge that sensation in your body. Now, look for the inner state or the feelings and emotion that you're going through at this moment. Inspect it and take a note of it. And as you settle in, imagine you are a vigilant observer sitting by the river bank. And all you see in front of you is a stream of thoughts. Just imagine, take yourself to a place inside yourself where you can see as a vigilant observer, a pure awareness, a purely conscious and aware of every single thought that you're experiencing and what is going on in your mind. And as you sit in this riverbank, the only thing that you're holding on to is your breath. With each breath that you take in, you bring your awareness back to your body. At the same time, you're also a vigilant observer who is looking at a stream of thoughts which is flowing in front of you. Just notice what are those thoughts are. Gently look for the thoughts. If it is okay, allow yourself to travel with the thoughts and see till where it can go. Just allow the thought to take you in. And as you see in the thought that fading away in a distance of the stream of water, just like a stream of water, now you anchor back yourself with your next breath. You come back and be there anchored in your breath. And now you look for another set of thoughts that goes on in the stream of thoughts. Keep an eye on the thought, observe it, what it feels like, feel it what it is, and then allow it to just pass through you. In the next breath, come back to the observer self. So, from the place of being an observer, all you're seeing is you're witnessing the thoughts without any judgments. And you're not getting attached to any of the thoughts. The thoughts are just like a water, it's just flowing in front of you. And they don't necessarily have any purpose. And you don't take them seriously. You just be an observer and watch those thoughts. Whenever you find yourself carried away, gently bring your attention back to your breath and anchor yourself. With that, now, instead of thoughts, let's observe a sounds right now, the sound that you can hear around you. Just be a vigilant observer of any kind of a sound you're hearing at this moment. As you're hearing, listening to the sound around you, just bring your attention to the silence which also exists between the noise that you're hearing from outside. Look for the silence, a place of stillness which exists even when you're surrounded by all the noises and the sounds and distractions. Look for the silence. Be an observer of the silence. The moment you find the place of silence, try to be there for a moment or two. Just remind yourself, below any single noise and any single sound, there is a silence. The sound itself comes and occupies a place of silence, but the silence always exists irrespective of whatever the sound or the noise that you may hear. And just focus on the silence and stillness that you are surrounded with. As you're being an observer of silence and stillness, just gently bring your attention back to your body. Feel the sensations, tensions, and discomfort, if any, in your body at this moment. Look for the state that you are in. What is the quality of your emotion and your feelings? Just be an observer of your feelings and emotion. Take a mental snapshot, and then, whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes. So, when you're ready, you can come back. All right. Thank you so much. Yes, if any of you have a question or a thought, you can share right now. And post that, we can conclude for today. Yes, Siddharth.
Karthikeyan, so when you were talking about thoughts and awareness,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I was thinking of is one of the reasons why you identify yourself as a certain person
Mm-hmm.
has to do with the kind of experiences that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
Virtue of people being in different scenarios, different circumstances,
Yes,
each of us has different experience.
you're right.
And when we do have certain experiences,
Mm-hmm.
it may also come at the cost of invalidating others' experiences.
You're right.
When we have a certain thought, when we have certain experience, there
Mm-hmm.
is an identity which we build within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The good part is we identify ourselves with that particular thought, which is great if we go on to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But also comes at a cost of invalidating others' thoughts, others' identity, and in turn,
True.
others' experiences.
True.
And I feel if we do not accept that particular notion,
Mm-hmm.
then you will always be at odds with another individual who has a competing thought.
True.
So, and I feel that gives rise to a lot of discomfort, not only to you,
To the
but
other
also
person as
when we look at, say, humanity as a race, or simply because we believe only what we think or what we do is correct,
well. Even
while saying the other person is always wrong. This was something which was just playing in my mind, so I just thought of sharing.
thank you so much for sharing, Siddharth. And that is so true. Like, what you said is so true that in a way we say that we sometimes we call some people might call themselves like, peace warriors, right? So how contradicting it is, like, peace and warriors. They're talking about I'm fighting for something, right? So the peace itself, like, when you're talking about to stay away from the fight, but then believe that, oh, then who will fight for it? I want inner peace. I wanted to fight for the global thing. And then they want to take it upon themselves and fight for things. See, here the difference is there is only one thing. I wouldn't say we should let go of all the identification, all the beliefs and etc. I'm not saying that. It is just when we are completely aware and know that these are the identifications that I prefer to hold on. And even as you rightly said, if someone opposes it, like, someone comes with a different identification, we don't fight. We just acknowledge, oh, I respect you being that person you are identifying, and that doesn't cause me any kind of a discomfort within me. And then I will not respond to you or hurt you and try to prove that I am this and you are that. No. So the whole of this whole thing, like being an awareness person, like self-aware person. And it is a primary objective is it is to understand that these are the identities are which are talking. It is not just about me, but then I also appreciate and accept the people with the different types identities. So when we are going from there, we are much more open and we are not get troubled by any of the day-to-day things. And that's an objective of this exercise itself. Understanding identities, ideas, beliefs, and etc. And be a completely self-aware person. And from the self-aware place of self-awareness, we won't judge or we won't cause a discomfort to us or to anybody. That's all it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Siddharth. Anyone else? Tanaji?
Yeah.
Please.
When I was meditating a short while ago, there were some negative feelings in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Negative thoughts were there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I observed them, the negative thoughts, and I decide that I am only the observer,
Yes.
not the decider.
Yes.
I'm not going to decide whether they are negative or positive.
True.
Only observe those thoughts. That
True.
was in my mind. And when you say that listen to the sounds around and listen, was the stillness is there, still there, and feel it.
Yes.
I feel the stillness outside also.
True. And Tanaji, that example is actually I taken it from you because you told me that, you are getting distracted with the sounds around you, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Right. So the moment when you said that the other day, when you said you're getting distracted with the surround, the sounds which are
Mm.
outside of you, and you're not able to focus, I just want to give that experience as well. It is not just always inwards, but it can also be outwards, right? It
Yeah.
can be the sound that is right now that's happening around us and still see the stillness in that place, right?
Mm.
So it is not about just closing, shutting all the doors, running to the mountain top, and make ourselves in a very peaceful place and say, I have an inner peace. No, the real challenge is right in the world when you have all the responsibilities and all the things that you want to experience in this life and still be still.
Yes, there is 99.99 stillness is there outside also and inside also, but we focus on only 0.01% others.
True. So that is
Mm.
a objective of the whole thing. Like, the inner stillness is the moment, like, we are only experiencing for a brief moment, it doesn't make any sense. I would be the last person to do that. And that's why I just want to take you through a different journey as much as possible with my limited understanding, what I can do. Right. So let's explore much. And if anyone have a question, you can stay back, or else we can conclude the day 6 right this moment because it's going to be 7:50. We conclude and see you all tomorrow then. If you have any questions, you can always stay back and ask, or you can post on WhatsApp. Thank you.
Right then. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks.
Thank
Siddharth.
you, Karthik. Thank
Sure.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anaju.